We are now joined by Gabriel Morency. Of course, you can check him out on twitter.com/SportsRage or check out SportsRageTV.com. He's also the host of Game Time Decision on FantasySportsNetwork.com and MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, Matt. How you guys doing tonight?
I am very well, thanks. We're in a brand new studio tonight, so just trying to get our bearings here, and but still on a high from this past weekend. Tell me, in your wildest dreams, did you think 96,000 for 2 preseason games with no home team?
Well, maybe I'm an optimist when it comes to baseball in Montreal, but I actually was expecting. I was, to be honest, if I had to, as a betting man, if I had to put a number, I probably would have said 78,000. So no, it did exceed my expectations. I wish I was there. I was getting choked up on Friday night watching the Gary Carter ceremonies and thinking about meeting the kid numerous times in Montreal, in social settings. I used to run into him at the casino in the late night hours in Montreal, and of course with the Expos as well. He was just a guy that loved the Expos, and he loved baseball. So, I was getting choked up, brought back a lot of memories. But definitely, Montreal hit a grand slam, Matt, without a doubt. The weekend really couldn't have gone any better. I mean, I wasn't there, so, from what I saw from afar, but I had Rob Nyer on my show, and, Rob Nyer is one of the most well-respected baseball columnists around, lives in Portland. And, he was blown away by what he saw as well. And we were talking about, really that, he strongly believes that baseball will return. He talks to a lot of baseball people, and he believes that baseball will return to Montreal. Well, how long is that going to be? I don't know. You might know more than I would, Matt. But this stuff isn't going to happen overnight. But that was a great first step.
Gabe, you mentioned about the next move, potentially speaking. If you were a part of this whole Expos Nation thing, what would you do, or what would be the next move in terms of maybe ownership looking at this? How do you maintain momentum to continue the name Expos being mentioned all throughout the Major League Baseball?
I think it's it's almost disappointing, isn't it? Because I think people woke up on Sunday morning hoping there was another game, and even I was all jacked up. What's the next step? And realistically, even though I've never had a problem with the Olympic Stadium, let's be honest. It's 2014 now. So, if there's going to be a baseball team in Montreal in 2018 or 2019 or 2020 or whatever it's going to be, Mo, it's going to have to be a stadium. There's going to have to be a stadium. So I think now you really want to send a message to Major League Baseball. And maybe to the Oakland Athletics. I was talking to Jonah Carey, and he thinks the Tampa Bay Rays situation is being overblown a little bit. That they're not close to actually being out of there, actually. And maybe the Oakland Athletics situation is more fragile than Tampa's is ultimately. But and I'm hard pressed to see Tampa or Oakland relocating to Montreal, to be honest. So then we're looking at expansion. Expansion costs a lot of money, and if it's going to be expansion, they probably want to bring another team in. And as me and Rob Nyer were discussing, he brought up Portland, maybe Montreal-Portland or a dual type of situation. There's still a lot of work to be done, Mo. It's not like, because of 2 exhibition games, suddenly the Expos is going to be playing ball there next year. But it was a great step. I would imagine that we do this again next year with the Blue Jay organization. I mean, they obviously love it. I mean, there was only 3% of all Major League Baseball games last year actually had bigger crowds than what was in Montreal. Major League Baseball Network showing the games is pretty big as well. It's not like they were sort of ignoring it. They actually put it on their own network, which I thought was pretty impressive. But I think serious stadium talks, that'll make people listen. The old build it and they will come. That's the bottom line. Hey, listen, I had no problem going every night to the Olympic Stadium. I loved it so much I moved to the East End. But not everybody thinks like me. They need a new ballpark.
Gabriel Morency joining us here on TSN 690. Switching gears here, Gabriel. Obviously, the March Madness tournament still going on. Your thoughts on the field as it sits right now?
Well, it's a pretty improbable Final Four, and when ESPN had over 11 million entries, 11 million brackets were filled out on their website, and only 612 people have this Final Four. So what does that say? Really, if you think about it, there's probably about 2 million Kentucky basketball fans out there, if not more. And they didn't even pencil them in to make it to the Final Four. UConn are quite a surprise as well. I just want to note, though, the basketball tonight. Everybody talks about March Madness. The UConn Huskies were 12-6 in a new American Athletic Conference. And the SMU Mustangs didn't make the tournament and were 12-6 in the same conference. They were 28-9. UConn were 30-8. But I just want to give a shout out to Larry Brown, who I got a ton of respect for. I've been lucky enough to have him on SportsRage before. And, Larry Brown, the guy's won an ABA championship. He's won a college championship. He's won an NBA championship. And, he's a New York guy, former coach of the Knicks, coaching in the NIT right now. SMU rallied from 13 points down tonight against Clemson. SMU now in the NIT championship game. And nobody in basketball has that type of resume with ABA championship, NCAA championship, NBA championship, and an NIT championship. And Larry Brown's been around long enough as a 73-year-old to remember when the NIT was bigger than the NCAA tournament was. But I just want to get that in there. Keep your eye on Larry Brown in this championship game. It's a great story going on in basketball right now. But Final Four is real good. What an epic game between Michigan and Kentucky. It's ironic that Florida played all three teams in the Final Four. Obviously, they played Kentucky 3 times this year, twice in a regular season. They played them in the SEC championship game, and they've played their only 2 losses this year, ironically enough, and it's amazing that it happened this way because they're not even in the conference, is UConn and Wisconsin. So, great storylines. Kentucky, the first Fab 5 team with 5 freshmen to make it to a Final Four since the real Fab 5 and the Michigan Wolverines. Ironic that they beat Michigan. I like Kentucky to beat Wisconsin. I've been going broke betting against the Florida Gators. But I'll tell you, I like UConn. I just like Boatwright. I like Napier. I like the guard play. I like the 6 points. Maybe Florida beat them, but it's hard for me to go against UConn right now. And ultimately right now, I see Kentucky cutting down the nets on Monday night.
Well, Gabriel, you talk about UConn. I actually had a chance to be there this week, and I think the thing that I took away the most from that, what impressed me the most, was Kevin Ollie and how he's just seamlessly taken over for Jim Calhoun, stepped into this program that obviously has a lot of prestige and a lot of history to it, and just picked up the torch and kept right on going.
Yeah, Kevin Ollie was the type of player that played hard, and he's young enough that he can relate to these kids. The kids listen to him because he's had success in the NBA. And it was a tough situation last year with UConn. They couldn't play in the postseason tournament. Jim Calhoun, left a dirty backyard, so to speak, and Ollie had to clean it up. And a lot of times you see programs, look at USC football. They had 1 or 2 years with scholarships and bowl ineligibility, and the wheels sort of fell off. Ollie's done a great job. And he sort of reminds me of Thibodeau in a way in which, they're little, and that's one thing that bothers me about college basketball is the 4-minute intervals. There's too many commercials. There's not enough flow to the game because they go to a damn break every 4 minutes. But Kevin Ollie coaches in 4-minute installments, and it's brilliant. Similar to hockey, 1 shift at a time, but they go 1 stop at a time. So he demands that we get 3 stops in the next 4 minutes, and it's not asking too much. And it's unbelievable. Michigan State don't get bullied. They bully you. Michigan State were almost crying. They packed up their ball and went back to East Lansing. They were settling for 3-point shots. They couldn't get in the paint. And when you think of UConn basketball, the first thing that comes to mind is Shabazz Napier and obviously Boatwright as well. But it's that damn interior defense that they play. It's unbelievable how they just clamp down on you. There's like 5 Joakim Noahs out there. But the beauty and the insanity of March Madness is going back to the first game of the tournament for UConn. They were down by 3 with about 20 seconds left. Napier misses a 3-point shot, and a guy off the bench that's averages like 0.2 points a game this year in Brema puts it back in, gets a 3-point play, and they end up winning the game in overtime. Man, there's a fine line between success and failure in this tournament.
Chatting with Gabriel Morency. Gabriel, before we let you go, your thoughts on the GSP injury and the guy who wasn't even supposed to be close to coming back to UFC now gone for a while.
Sucks to be him, I guess. Sort of. He's still rich anyways. But talking about a GSP injury right now is talking about like a Michael Jordan injury. So what impact does it have? The guy's retired. He's been retired for a couple of months, and every day, every week, he's this and that. He's worried about Captain America right now. All right, he's got the movie coming out. He's not worried about fighting. So I guess it kind of sucks for him because I know he was expected to do this big media blast for the movie coming out, but I don't look at it. GSP's retired. When he comes back, I'll talk about him and worry about him. But until he does, it's irrelevant to me.
He is Gabriel Morency, SportsRageTV.com, FantasySportsNetwork.com, as well as Fight TV, MMA Meltdown. What? Anything else? Am I missing anything?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. I'm excited for the start of the Major League Baseball regular season. Playoffs around the corner, and the Canadians. I know they didn't get it done tonight, but Canadians are streaky as hell. So who knows what can happen in the playoffs? Eastern Conference is wide open. Great time of the year to be a sports fan.
It is. Thanks so much.
Hey, always a pleasure, guys.
All right, there you go. That's Gabriel Morency. It is Game Points here on TSN 690. Final segment of the show next. Coming up, a Tweet Time with Stefano Micella and our encore presentation of an interview with Tim Raines from last week.